Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's staying safe and sane out there. This one is a top 10 list inspired by a Facebook memory that popped up this morning. 8 years ago today, my very first book got published, Metro 7, when I was writing under the pseudonym of Matthew J. Hellscream. Rest in peace. It was my very first book, and I was just thinking to myself today, what would be a good way of kind of commemorating that important date, the Octoversary, we'll call it. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to go through a top 10 list of things that I've learned top 10 most important things that I've learned since I started publishing, and just share it with everyone. Because I know I'm overdue for a March video, and it's coming soon, but hopefully this will just tide you over until then. I'm focusing on getting Edge Force 2 finalized as much as I can, so the update video will happen after that finishes. Without further ado, here we go into number 1. The first book is always the hardest. If you're at the very beginning of your author journey and you're trying to get that first book written, it's probably going to take you quite some time unless you've done a lot of pre-work and you know what you're doing. One of the absolute universal truths of writing books is that the first one is going to take you the longest, and it's probably going to be the most painful, possibly, unless you've been doing this a long time, and then they all start to get kind of painful in their own way, but that's a whole other thing. But the first one, proving to yourself that you can do it and get it finished, that's the hardest, because you're learning as you go. You're trying to put all of these things into practice that you've kind of drilled into your head since you started thinking about writing a book for the first time. But tell you what, getting to the end of that first one feels pretty bloody good, especially when you hit that publish button and it goes live. So yes, first one is always the hardest. The next thing that I learned, and this was echoed by a number of people that I've spoken to and seen opinions of online, is that your second book is going to be like a band-aid. If you do it quick and you get it done and you release it before it starts to hurt, that's the best plan. And that's what I did with Carnifex. So Carnifex is another one that I went through Kickstarter with. It's a bit shorter. About 82,000 words, and it's an Ozploitation novel about extinct megafauna predator called the Thylacoleo carnifex, which I'm obsessed with. Absolutely love him. So I decided to write a book about him. And this one I wrote about in 6 months, and editing took quite a bit longer than that, but it eventually got out, and there you go. Number 2. Get it done quick and it'll be much less painless. Much less painless. If you leave it there and you just start pulling it off slowly, so all the hair gets caught and it gets all gunky, and it just hurts by the end of it. So get it done quick. Just like I'm trying to get this video done quick. Okay, number 3 is writing groups, the benefits and the detriments. I've been in many different writing groups throughout my writing career. Some of them for fun, some of them for the social aspect, and some of them for a more career-focused place among peers of where I am in my writing journey. Now, depending on where you are in your writing journey, the purpose of the writing group that you might want to find might be different. If you're learning your craft, then you're probably going to want to go for one that everyone's just learning how to do it and maybe doing it for fun and the social aspect. But if you're at a point where you want to take things a little bit more seriously, then you might want to look into professional author associations, whether they be in person, online, doesn't really matter. Just try and judge on where you are in your career and what's going to suit that best. Because I can guarantee you will find stuff from every writing group that you go to that will help, and you'll find stuff in every writing group that you go to that will hinder you, that will actually do the opposite of what you want it to. But part of the reason why you want to get that range of experience and exposure to different groups is because you'll eventually learn what works for you and what doesn't, and that's really valuable. Number 4, real life gets in the way of trying to write books. Absolutely does. Writing books we may pretend that it doesn't happen in a vacuum, but it does. Because ultimately, it's all about us sitting down in front of a keyboard, in front of a monitor, tippy-tapping away or talking through dictation software or whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to you. You have to do that by yourself. Unless you're co-writing, which is great too. But still, that's 2 people or 3 people, however many people. It's still just a small group, mostly just yourself, and it's all on you. Now, anything can happen to derail that. Absolutely anything. Look at the last 2 and a bit years. Pandemic. We've got war on the horizon. We've got economic situations. You could have someone in your family suddenly pass away. You could have the house that you're renting taken out from under you and sold. You could have the foundations of your entire life just pulled out from under you. It happened to me when my ex-wife left. I'm not going to get into the details, but it's actually quite funny now. She went back to Canada and broke up with me after 8 years of marriage through Facebook Messenger. So back then, hurt like a motherfucker. But right now, absolutely hilarious in its ridiculousness. But knocked me about for probably about 2.5 years until I refound the focus for what I wanted to do. And I've always wanted to write. You just got to roll with whatever life throws at you, and you use it. You use it as motivation. You use it as energy to change things. You just got to grasp it, embrace it, move forward using it. Which brings me to number 5, which is be prepared to change track. Odds are that the darling of a book that you've got in your head that you want to write, that is going to be the one book that is going to rule them all, it's probably not going to be your first book. I'm just being totally honest there. If you are one of those unicorns which launches your first book and it goes absolutely gangbusters and you can quit your job and changes the world, I'm happy for you. That's fantastic. But odds are that's not going to happen. 99% of the cases of authors, it doesn't. This is a cumulative business. You need to keep putting out books, keep telling good stories, be good to people. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is be a good person, be good to people, write good stories, take people on adventures. And the more books you put out, the more audience you're going to gather around yourself. If you don't gather an audience with this amazing first book that you think is going to launch your career, if instead it comes out like a wet fart and everyone stays away from it, you need to be able to learn from that. You need to be able to think to yourself, okay, that didn't work. What can we do to get things back on track? And getting back on track is the most important part, because just because one idea doesn't work doesn't mean that your next one isn't. It might not. If that one doesn't work either, then do it again. Do something else. Do another idea. Another thing. You might want to change genres. You might want to change pen names. You might want to change from third I'm talking so fast and trying to get through this so quickly, I've forgotten the word for, oh my god, third person perspective. There we go. Third person, first person. You might want to change between both of those. Who knows? If it's not working, change it. Try something new. Change track. Number 6, learn the craft. This is not something that I did before I started writing books. I read lots of books and I loved lots of books, and I mostly put things together through osmosis and tried to use all of that to tell a really good story. Now, Metro 7 was not a bad story, but it was a very clunky, amateur, written by someone who obviously didn't know the craft of writing stories. Everything in the kitchen sink is in there. There was head hopping. The perspective changed, mid chapter without a chapter break. I did all of the things wrong that you shouldn't do in a book. But the important thing is that I learnt from every single one of them. And that's what it comes down to, is everything that you do, you put it into the bank. You do something new, you make a new mistake, you learn from it, you hone your craft over the years. Now, number 7. Number 6 was learn the craft. Number 7 is learn the business. Because there's two parts to being an indie author. The first is the fun bit where you get to come up with cool characters and take them on cool adventures and write cool books. The second part is not so fun, and that's figuring out how to sell those cool books. There are so many resources out there online about the craft side of things and the business side of things. I'd highly recommend just looking for podcasts about how to sell books, how to market books, what can you do. Join some good Facebook groups. I'm just going to name drop the 20 books to 50k group. If you want to have a look at that one, search for 20 books to 50k. You will honestly never find a better, more professional area to be able to learn from professionals who are already doing all of the things that you want to be able to do to make your author career work. So yeah, two aspects, craft and the business. Lots of resources out there for both of them. Let's move on. Number 8, follow your passions. If you love werewolves and vampires and urban romance and all that kind of stuff, and you want to write it, that's absolutely fantastic. It's a really, really popular genre that you're going to do really well in if you love it. But if you only want to write in a genre because you see how much money people are making in that genre, but you absolutely hate werewolves and vampires and fey creatures and romance plots and love triangles and all of that, you're going to have a really bad time. So you need to find somewhere in a genre that you love, in a niche that you love within that genre, that you can write awesome books and make your own place. But you need to follow your own passions, because if you don't, then you're going to lose the love for writing. You're going to lose that love for telling stories. You're probably going to burn out, which is going to do the complete opposite in your author career than what you want it to. Number 9, learn from your mistakes. And this touches on pretty much everything else that comes before, because I can guarantee you that every single thing that you do when it comes down to writing books, releasing them, marketing them, everything, every element of becoming an author, you are going to make mistakes. But that's fine, because everyone makes mistakes, and the people who say that they don't are lying. Guaranteed. The most important part of learning any skill set is being able to identify what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And just because something is a mistake to somebody else doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you in your story. Just because something works for someone else doesn't mean that it's going to work for you in your story. You need to get as comfortable as you can with your universe, with your books, with your process, to be able to figure out what's going to work and what's not. And the only way that you're going to do that is to figure it out, make mistakes, do good things, and eventually you'll figure it out. I'm 8 years into this, and I still haven't figured that out completely. Number 10. No matter what, keep going. I can count, I can't count on 2 hands the amount of people that I've seen ignite as a bright spark in the indie publishing industry, and they write heaps and heaps of books. They write 20, 30 different books, and they're huge, huge successes. They quit their jobs and they make 6 figures, 7 figures, and then they burn out. Then they don't write any more books because they can't do it anymore. That's not the way to have a proper successful author career. If you want to make enough money to be able to retire, there's probably better ways than writing books to do that. I mean, it's not impossible. There are plenty of people out there making very, very good money releasing books very regularly, but you got to be able to keep going. So don't put yourself in a position where you're going to burn out and fade away. You need to find an equilibrium for yourself that is going to let you keep writing good books at a good pace and make your audience happy. So that's my top 10. We're done. I was hoping to keep this under 10 minutes, and we're just under 15. So I'm happy with that. Hopefully we will be having this discussion in another 8 years, once I've been publishing for 16 years, and let's see how much my advice has changed, or whether I burn out and fade away. Who knows?